You're listening to Soul School with Laura Coe and Kevin Kaiser. On this show, we dive into life's biggest questions. Who are we? What are we here to do? And how can we fearlessly live as our truest, deepest selves? Soul School is the spiritual education you never received. So if you're ready, join us as we explore together. Soul School is in session. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This episode is a short one. Again, these are becoming a fan favorite and some of our favorite shows too, because we get to share tidbits, poems, pieces of literature, and things that have really impacted us. And today, Laura is in the hot seat. Laura, how you feeling?
Well, when you put it like that, no, I'm excited.
Good. Well, so today you're going to share with us a quote or piece, something that is really meaningful to you, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So I think what I'll do is I'll share it with you first and tell you a little bit about what I think it means, and then just share the story a bit. But it's from Plato, and it's every seeker after wisdom knows that up to the time when philosophy takes over his soul is a helpless prisoner, chained hand and foot in the body, compelled to view reality not directly, but only through its prison bars and wallowing in utter ignorance.
Wow. Wow. So,
Yeah.
okay. So the first image I get is of Plato's cave as you're reading that, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, talk to me
Yeah.
about how old were you when you came across this? Because you had mentioned to me before that you were pretty young, and it just seemed bizarre that something like that, because I had to really concentrate as you were reading it. Like how old were you, and how did it really grab onto you, or why?
Yeah. So I wanted to share this one today because I did the still point in the turning world, and it was similar. And this was the other one. You know, Kevin, I hate to admit it, and my son's older now, so it's okay to go public and not feel like he'll die because he's aware. But I was like kind of a mess in high school. I was partying and no, didn't care about school. Like I was that kid that you're like, oh, I hope my kid doesn't get caught
Mhm.
up with that kid, right? Like I had so many friends, I had so much fun, but I mean, I was not serious and I did not care about school. And if a teacher said, what should we do today? My hand would go up in the air and I'd be like, recess. Like I was so annoying, right? And I just, anything to not be in school, I felt tortured by the school system. It was like a caved animal feeling for me, right? So a caged animal, excuse me. So I really, didn't get good grades. I was in an elite school. I mean, an elite school. University of Chicago has a preschool through high school program, and it's very small and it's really competitive. And I didn't care about anything. So there I was getting bad report card after the next. And I went into an English class, and my teacher, I guess, had us reading Plato, and usual me, I didn't care. And I read this sentence and everything in me just stopped. Like it just was like what just happened, right? So intellectually, I don't know that I followed it because it's really deep, but I had a absolute profound awakening to the meaning that my soul was chained to my body. And the school systems and the education systems and the knowledge that was being taught, right? To know in my mind that 1 plus 1 is 2, and this is pink versus green, and like the learnings that were happening. For me, on a soul level, there was this feeling like I'm going to get indoctrinated into a worldview, a belief system if I am not careful, and I will end up like this quote, chained in utter ignorance, right? And I knew it in my body. I was too young to like be able to say more than that. I just had this epic fear that was true, and so I went to college 2 years later, immediately signed up for ancient Greek philosophy, and I started getting straight A's, and I went to graduate school in philosophy, and then late in life I came into all the spirituality, and it all came together, right? But it really sort of encapsulates or summarizes, two big things, which is the quote itself is deep, and we can go through that, but then this other part, which is, you know, on a soul level, this resonated as true at 16. Because at 16, I did not know what I was reading. But on a soul level, I awoke and I woke up to the words as truth, right? Like, I've already studied this. I already know this. It was a
Yeah.
remembering.
That makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense to me because I think most people have had that experience where they hear a piece of music and they'll be moved and they won't even know why it moves them. It's almost like there's this
Hmm.
essence behind it, right? Like this frequency, but literal frequency in the case of music behind it that just resonates in a different way. I mean, how does it, because I can tell as you're talking about it, because I can see you, on screen, that like it did something to you, right? Physically, emotionally. How does it resonate with you now? I mean, there are probably layers and layers of like other meaning, deeper meaning to you, but what does it mean to you now, like right now?
I mean, the first thing is just how truthful these Akashic records, the view of the Akashic realm is the closest thing that makes sense to me, right? And it doesn't matter to me if it's not other people, but for me, this idea that we have a soul plan, that we come back here, we embody, we really don't remember our previous lives, but we have these little moments of awakenings to like the truth of who we are, which is the soul level, right? And so this for me was like the first time, I think, in my life, my conscious life, that I can remember waking up to the truth of the soul level, Laura, right? Like, this spoke to something ancient and profound in me, not this physical 16-year-old, right? So there's that. And then the second part, you said that the cave parable, or the allegory of the cave that Plato talks about. And for people who don't know, right, like there's this really beautiful story that Plato has. It's really famous, but um a bunch of people sitting in a cave, and they're staring at the wall, and they're chained, and they're staring at this wall, and it's all um, reflections, and they think they're looking at the real thing, right? So imagine there's a bird reflected on the wall or whatever, right? There's these images. One person breaks out of the chains, leaves the cave, goes outside and goes, oh my God, it's just the sun is reflecting in a certain way, and it's going onto the cave wall. It's not real. That's not real. That's not the reality. And so it, Plato is bringing up a lot of cool stuff, but one is that, we don't know that we're looking at mere reflections when we're in life. We think we're looking at the reality. Two is when you break out of that view and you realize, oh my God, we just recorded another one recently around you and row, row, row your boat and life is just a dream. But it's like this idea that this life we're living in, it's not maybe exactly what it is. You get out. How do you talk to people who maybe think it
Yeah.
is truth, right? And so this person in Plato's story lived between. Like, where do you live in life if you don't accept it anymore? But you don't want to be outside the cave, because then you're not in life, right? And then the last thing is this: every seeker after wisdom knows that up to the time when philosophy takes over his soul. So what he means by philosophy is the idea, right? That wisdom to Plato was knowing I know nothing,
That's a big one.
right? That's a big one. And so when you know nothing, right? That's when you have true wisdom. And when you have true wisdom, in his view, you finish all your soul incarnations and you don't have to reincarnate. And that's the end of your soul evolution, which has also then been true in the Akashic records, right? So it's this multi layered of, I love the philosophy, it hits home on a truth for me. And then, like, this beginning of my life, love of Plato, Western philosophy meets this phase of my life at 52 of the connection between this ancient Sanskrit. Akasha means sky, basically Eastern system meets Western, right? And what are the odds of that, right? So it affirms at least these great works are all speaking from a very similar perspective or
Yeah.
lens, and they speak to
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Well, and it's this is kind of a funny, not a tangent, but as you were talking, it reminded me of Christopher Nolan's movie Memento. Did you ever?
Oh my god, I love that movie. It's like one of my favorite
So it's
movies.
it as you were describing reading that right as a 16-year-old, like something about that just resonated within me, and I just saw the Memento and like this whole you know picture of a soul incarnating through many 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 human lifetimes, and each time they go to sleep and wake back up, they don't remember anything, but they've left behind these clues, you know, that activate memories and help them. And if anybody listening hasn't seen Memento by Christopher Nolan, I'm not going to ruin anything about it, but you need to go watch it and you'll see what I'm talking about. But it is like it does drive home this idea to me that on some mysterious like soul level we had hidden these little things along the way for ourselves to discover, to activate these knowings that really can't even be put into words, but are really like these launch pads
Yeah.
for the next level of growth for us.
Kevin, it's like I'm even going to go a step further and say yes. And um, I wonder if our education system and our cultural norms were different. And when you're born, there's a belief that we understand, right? You're a father, I'm a mother. We understand that while I gave birth to my son, I don't actually know the soul within this flesh that showed up, right? This little package of 8 pounds that has blue eyes and looks a certain way, like, but I don't know where the soul has been, right? I just see him day one. And if we could think that way as we raise our children and as we put them into the school systems, and we can encourage, right, the alchemist, right, or the Nolan movie you just mentioned, this idea of following the breadcrumbs, watching as life leaves you these incredible clues as to exactly what you decided to do before you came here and you wanted to do in this life, and what speaks to you and wakes you up and makes you feel most alive. It's already here, and there's these knowings, there's these breadcrumbs dropped all over for you to wake back up to the endlessness of yourself, right? Um, but we're trained to not trust that. We're trained to think and learn and study. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying don't get an education, but to know that the education is just information. It's not this other part, which is like, I sometimes think about like compass and radar, right? Like the compass that's setting the path of my life is coming from this place. And it's so abundant if we know it's there and we're willing to listen. But the mind is like, nope.
Yeah,
So, right, it just like drives us in all sorts of weird directions. And then we wake up and say, why is my life so frustrating and I'm so heavy and I'm lost and stuck? And right, I've been there many times in my life. And it's because I'm not attuned to the realities of what's available and just listening. It's so
yeah,
easy.
yeah, in your own inner wild essential nature, because I think most people, and not just people listening to this, would agree that like at a young age we're domesticated, mostly through our educational system, through culture, and as a means of keeping us productive within the dream, within the game. And that's why you said something about what makes you come alive, and that's really what the world needs. And we've just been told not to trust that sense, like the feelings of, oh, this makes me come alive. Well, yeah, but there's not a high ROI on that, or you can't make a lot of money doing that thing. And so people immediately start categorizing what they're allowed to feel and know and be and do. And And what you're saying, what Plato's reminding us through you and you sharing this is, no, man, you're uncontainable. Like, let those things awaken in you.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin. And it's like, it's so serious, right? Because I'm going to get my serious hat on, but it's like, it's not just that culture domesticates us, like an animal is domesticated. We are domesticated with a threat of love, right? It's like, and any sense of self-worth, right? So I show my son a spoon and he says fork and I say no, spoon, right? And then if they get it wrong too many times, parents withhold affection and love. And if they go to the school systems and they don't say it the way they need to, they don't get an A. And if you don't get an A, you're not going to get a job. And if you don't get a job, you can't pay for your bills. And it's like, oh my God, right? And it's fine. We have to agree that a fork is a fork and a spoon is a spoon. Fine, 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 fine. Let's agree to some norms so we can all function. But there's this next level of a belief of who I am that's also put into this domestication where it's the switch to make me do it is the withholding of love, right? And the worthiness of the love, right? And it's so everybody's walking around, right? All of us, don't lie, every single one of us wonders if we're lovable if we don't do something, wonders if we're worthy to step out to do something, to what? Be ourself, to be unconditional flowing love. And how do you put a worth on the essential soul that is love, right? I mean, it's so
It
upside
is.
down.
Yeah.
So,
And that's
yeah.
hopefully, we're doing our part to help remind everybody that it doesn't have to be that way. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your beautiful gold nugget with us. And I can't wait for the next one because these are becoming, not the other conversations are bad. I love those. I just love these bite-sized pieces, and I hope everybody else does too. So thank you, Laura.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. And I really hope that you consider checking out the Little Soul School, littlesoul.school, where there's a community of people dedicated to soul growth, soul learning, and the Akashic energy, a space that holds all of our soul's histories, everything we've ever done in all of our lifetimes. Because they're looking for a deeper connection to themselves, a place to experiment and play with spirituality in a non-judgmental, vulnerable, open community of people. No woo-woo, no fluff, just fun and connection. Come check it out, littlesoul.school.